It's October. It's October, and that means cards subject to change. It's here to review WCW's biggest event of the year, Halloween Havoc. We're headed back to 1997 once more for World Championship Wrestling in its prime. Cards subject to change is part of the For Frequency's Sake podcast network, where you can also catch Educated Ignorance, The Data Lab, and other great podcast content. Subscribe today and don't miss an episode. And now, dropping in the ring, it's well, not really. Here's TZ.
Hey, Mr. Nick Bull, how are you, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. I'm going to give Road Dogg Jesse James a run for his money there with the intro.
Yeah, you really are. That was well done. I'm excited for this show. You got me revved up with the classic Tony Schiavone. It's Sting!
She can't have enough of those in the show, that's for sure.
No, I agree. And it's just a classic. It brings a smile to my face. I've said it before. Every time I hear Tony Schiavone, every time you or I do it, because it's just a classic line. And, you know, to quote JR, we're going to have a slobber knocker of a show to give you another commentator's perspective. Because, like you said, it's October of 1997 where we've landed the time machine. October 26th, to be specific. And, Nick, we are in Las Vegas, Nevada, in the MGM Grand Arena for not just Halloween Havoc, Slim Jim's Halloween Havoc.
Yeah, Slim Jim paid a hefty price tag to have their name all over this pay-per-view, and it goes without showing. You've got padded ring post covers, courtesy of Slim Jim. You've got Slim Jim on the set, Slim Jim in the ring, and Slim Jim on all the graphics. So, hey, this thing is brought to you by Slim Jim, and they're not going to let you forget about it.
No, they are not. And, of course, you know, the big Slim Jim deal there with Halloween Havoc couldn't have happened without the Macho Man. He brought that Slim Jim deal over when he jumped ship from WWE over to the WCW.
He did, under contract, and Slim Jim stuck with him. And I kind of forget this part of Macho Man's career when he's part of the NWO. He kind of just blends in with all the other members of the NWO. But he's the best wrestler in the world. Yeah.
The cream of the crop.
And Macho Man putting it out there, long before Daniel Bryan, Bryan Danielson, and CM Punk did, that he's the best wrestler in the world. And he's very affirmative of it. And we're going to talk about Macho Man and all this. Liz looks unbelievable in the show. She looks gorgeous. She is aged very well, Miss Elizabeth has.
I could not agree more. She comes out looking fantastic. And, of course, we'll get to Macho Man a little bit later on. He's a little later in the card tonight.
Halloween Havoc! Yeah.
So we've got Dusty Rhodes, Tony Schiavone, and Bobby the Brain Heenan on the call. This is a little odd to see Dusty in 1997, but it's all part of a storyline because Larry Zbyszko, who is usually sitting at the commentator's desk, is busy doing things in the ring tonight. We'll get to that a little bit later, too.
Yep, Tony Schiavone, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, and Bobby the Brain Heenan welcome us to the show. But not only do they welcome us to the show, CZ, they welcome us to the biggest one-on-one cage match of all time.
Yes, sir. The biggest one-on-one cage match, if you can call it that. And we're going to talk about this in length. I love the cage that is set up for this match. It's very unique in its design. But we're going to start at the beginning. We're not going to start at the end because that would be silly. The opening contest of this 9-match card is Yuji Nagata versus the Ultimo Dragon. Yuji Nagata, accompanied by Ultimo Dragon's former manager, Sonny Ono. And that's actually where this feud stems from. It's nothing to do with Yuji Nagata himself. It's the Dragon versus Sonny Ono for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, this is the Ultimo Dragon, Sonny Ono's revenge, and he's went out and got Yuji Nagata. Nagata's a 2-time IWGP champion. He's a 2-time GHC champion. a 4-time world heavyweight champion over in Japan. This is him very young. This is him coming over to America for the first time to work as part of New Japan Wrestling. Came over for this short little stint. This is his main feud in WCW in '97 was to get back. He was Sonny Ono's hired gun and to get back at Ultimo Dragon. But Yuji Nagata is a legend in and of itself. So when you see this match, see a young Japanese wrestler and don't know who he is, he has established himself obviously since 1997 and is definitely a legend in the world of professional wrestling in Japan.
That is 100% accurate. Of course, Bobby refers to him as Yogi instead of Yuji, which I find hilarious.
Yuji? Yogi.
Yogi. Of course, anything Bobby says is gold.
Oh, I'm telling you.
Here nor there.
And for this match, it's Yuji Nagata with Sonny Ono versus Ultimo Dragon. And
yeah,
you mentioned Schiavone, Dusty Rhodes, and Bobby Heenan. We're also joined by Iron Mike Tenay, who appears out of nowhere like he lives just 2 blocks away. Oh, hey, guys. Right? I thought I'd just stop by for the wrestling show. I mean, that's just kind of what it felt like. I thought it was kind of funny.
And, we're blessed with Mike Tenay's presence for the first 3 matches of this card. They mentioned that, too, right off the bat.
Oh, for sure. And I think Mike Tenay is you'll find out why here in a little bit. Well, I think he's unsung hero of this pay-per-view. So
my notes on this match here, the first thing I have noted, there's a lot of good back and forth between Nagata and the Dragon. And that's to be expected. These are 2 phenomenal superstars for their time. Not the top of the card superstars, but this is a great opening match in my opinion. You've got them going back and forth a lot of some hot action throughout the match. One thing I have noted is in the middle of the match, you see Raven and the Flock, which they are dubbed Misfits by the commentary team. They're not called the Flock yet. We're not quite there. They're coming down to ringside to enjoy the show.
They are. Match, I have good back and forth action. I had Nagata with a killer pile drive early. I had Ultimo with a killer dragon screw, leg whip earlier on. You're right. Then there's a disruption in the crowd. Raven and his Misfits. The match is still going on in the ring as Raven and his cronies make their way to the front row. I don't know how they afford those front row seats when you see, they can't even afford clothing without holes in it. Anyway, we're back in the ring. Nagata lock. He locks it in, and Mike Tenay is explaining the Nagata lock is a stand-up figure 4. Blah, 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 blah. This is where Mike Tenay is at his best, man. They're letting him dissect all these moves. He's rattling off all this stuff about Nagata in Japan. But I really thought that was cool. I hadn't seen a stand-up figure 4 for quite some time. So seeing a Nagata lock was cool. I'm like, I completely kind of forgot about that move.
And, Mike Tenay's talking about the Ultimo Dragon having a bit of an injury here, too. He's got some bone chips in his elbow.
Yeah. Tenay kept focusing on that, and Nagata must have heard him, capitalized on it, because this back and forth match, it starts out good action. Nagata gets Ultimo goes for the sleeper. Nagata reverses it with an armbar, and boom! We got a submission at 9:42.
Yeah, good match, good length for the match. It didn't draw out very long. I thought it was timed perfectly, and of course, you got the rivalry between Sonny Ono and Ultimo Dragon. It wouldn't be prudent if Sonny Ono didn't come in and just start kicking the Dragon in his injured arm after the match.
Oh, after the match, and I got on here, armbar over. Nagata gets his cash out voucher, and he's heading to the steak buffet. Like, he couldn't get out of that ring quick enough. He's the hired gun. He got his cash out voucher, and now it's time for steak and shrimp in the hotel lobby.
Absolutely. I don't blame him. I could go for some steak myself right now.
I don't blame him. He come out and beat the crap out of Ultimo Dragon. Now he and Sonny are going to go hit the strip and get some steak.
For sure. I think that'll be a good night on the town for them.
I couldn't imagine. Could you imagine being on the strip with Sonny Ono? I couldn't even begin to imagine.
No, that would be an experience, to say the very least.
I wanted to say after the match, we see a segment backstage. I know of one of your personal favorites, your guy Disco Inferno.
Yes.
He's cutting a promo on women. That's always a dangerous topic. I'm going to stay away from that one. I'll let you break that one down, CZ.
So the one thing I have noted about this backstage segment is we see a very young Mark Madden, which I'm going to kick it back. We talked about Slamboree 2000 a few weeks ago, and
I'm still trying to forget about that. I'm still trying to forget about that show.
I am never going to let you forget about that show. But the reason I bring that up and throw back is Mark Madden is the commentator on Slamboree, and he's one of the main commentators in WCW in the year 2000. And I don't think he ever should have gone to the commentary table, but that I think you can agree with that, Nick. We talked about that in length on our Slamboree 2000 episode, which you can go back and catch in our archives.
I'm not going to slam Mark Madden anymore, but yeah, he really doesn't do good in this role either.
No, I agree. Yeah, Disco is talking about women and their roles. I don't want to touch that either. But the nice thing about this segment is we don't have to talk about it for very long because Jacqueline, who Disco Inferno will be facing in the ring later on, comes in and breaks things up and chases Disco somewhere off into the backstage area. And thank goodness for that.
Yeah, we got out of that men-women thing for now. We'll revisit it later. But I have written on here the WCW television title looks exactly like the AEW Trios belt. Tell me I'm wrong.
No, you are not wrong at all. I can definitely see that.
I just couldn't get over it's damn near spot on. I at first thought the NWA tag team belt was similar to that of the AEW Trios belt, but no, it's the WCW television title. Looks pretty much like the Trios belts that AEW are using right now.
And maybe Tony Khan drew inspiration from that television championship for his trio belts. Who knows? I mean, we know Tony Khan is a big fan of wrestling and always has been, so I'm sure that had played a factor at some point.
Hey, enough about Disco Inferno right now. We're going to go into the next match. And match number 2.
They bill it as an unadvertised match.
Yeah, a special unadvertised match. All right. Hey, I'm down. If it's unadvertised, hey, if it's found its spot on the card subject to change, I am down for this.
I agree. So you've got Ghetto. I believe I'm pronouncing it. It's Ghetto, correct?
It is pronounced Ghetto. It's spelled G-E-D-O. And it's Guido for a little bit until Mike Tenay comes out and corrects everybody and says, no, it's Ghetto.
And he is squaring off against the current Ocho Ring of Honor champion, Chris Jericho, before his WWE and AEW days. This is an early Chris Jericho. This is
Lionheart Chris Jericho.
This is.
And he's coming out to oh, you got to love that music thing.
And we've talked about that before. You know, copyright issues, I'm sure, is what caused the WWE when they put things on the network and then eventually Peacock to change music to more current music for the superstars who were in WCW because they didn't want to or couldn't pay for the copyrights of the original music. That being said, though,
hey, I'm glad you explained that, and I'm glad I wasn't the only one thinking, man, since we were hopping around in this time machine, like, how can we be here and break the walls down? And it hadn't happened yet, but I'm glad you explained it. You were able to clarify it there.
And here's the thing with music in WCW. The reason that I don't think that WWE, when they purchased WCW, wanted to touch some of the music rights is because of what Jimmy Hart did with a lot of Superstars entrance music is he took current pop songs, current pop and alternative songs, and he changed them just slightly so that he didn't get a copyright infringement. For like the biggest example, you go on YouTube and you find a Diamond Dallas Page match. His entrance music is Nirvana Smells Like Teen Spirit, with just a little bit of a difference.
Same 100%. Thing with Ravens. Ravens was Even Flow of Pearl Jam because he had the Even Flow DDT. It sounded just like Even Flow of Pearl Jam.
So I completely understand the WWE's point of view when they put things on the network of changing the music so that it wasn't the old school and it matched the talent, the current talent's music. So I'm behind that because it's hard to get copyright to do the copyright, and you really
I know
don't
it is.
want
It's just so weird. It's so weird hearing "Break the Walls Down" when he's the Lionheart, and "Break the Walls Down" doesn't come out for another 2 years.
Yeah, and in my opinion, we'll get to Hulk Hogan later, but his entrance music in the NWO was 100% Jimi Hendrix Voodoo Child, and it's really weird for me. I feel so let down not hearing Hulk Hogan come out to that anytime I watch a WCW show from the 90s. And
I know,
2000s.
but that's probably a hefty price tag to pay for that song.
I have no doubt.
We kick off this match with Heenan filling us in, saying that Jericho's dad, Ted Irvine, who was an actual former NHL hockey player, asked him to sharpen his skates, to which Brain felt totally offended, and I agree. I mean, Ted Irvine can go kiss it if he wants his skate sharpened. Heenan ain't going to do that. Today, I have on here again, Tenay breaking down Guido, giving us his full background. Is Tenay at his best? I never thought Tenay was the best color commentator, but I thought Tenay was good as the expert analysis, and they really have him shine here in the early stages of this pay-per-view. I thought he was the MVP. This match is fun. It's 1970s style brawling, and if you like to see opponents like Guido dressed as a giant mustard bottle, then this is your match. This ring here
I want to stop you right there, because tell me that Gedo is not Japanese Hulk Hogan in this match from the early 80s.
I mean, he's got the yellow and red on. He does. I can't get over the shirt. I can't get over the shirt that he keeps trying to pull down. I mean, this shirt is short for the Blue Meanie. The Blue Meanie would have a hard time with this shirt. But Guido, I just couldn't get over the fact that Guido just looked like a big bottle of spicy mustards in the whole match.
I don't even know what to say, because that's a great way to compare him. I like I said, I looked at him and I thought, oh my God, this is Hulk Hogan from the 80s coming from Japan with the bleach blonde hair, with the yellow and red on. I'm like, is he ripping off the Hulkster brother? Brother.
He's ripping off French's or Mussman's mustard. I mean, oh my God, dude. It's mustard or hot sauce that he looks like this. I can't get over the fact that Guido's filled out, but he keeps pulling down this shirt like that shirt's going to cover up his belly. That shirt has no chance in hell of covering up anything.
No, not at all. And, going back to the bleach blonde hair, I have it in my notes here that Dusty makes a comment on his hair, too, saying that Dusty Rhodes said he got in my hair coloring kit.
Guido must have stumbled into my medicine cabinet and got the platinum blonde hair color,
if you will.
I have on here my notes. I go, Jericho goes for a super Frankensteiner and tries to end his career. What in the hell was Jericho doing?
I have no idea. That looked horrible. I have that in my notes as well. Oh my, you are 100% correct. What was he thinking? And the commentators play it off like, oh, Guido blocked it, but that was 100% a botched move, and Jericho's lucky that he wasn't injured in that.
He very lucky. It almost was like about 85% through the move. Jericho's like, oh crap, I'm not going to do this, and just kind of fell. And thankfully, obviously, he's okay and goes on to have a great wrestling career. But for a short time in October of '97, we thought his career might have been over. Heenan, along with the rest of the wrestling world, is surprised that Jericho is up. I thought Jericho would be down a little bit longer than that. but must have been running on adrenaline. He sidesteps Guido. He sinks in the Lion Tamer for the one, for the submission. Heenan, I got on here. Heenan likes Guido, so I like him too.
Yeah, what a good match this was, despite the botched Frankensteiner off the top rope. We've got two good matches, two well-timed matches. Jericho, I have in my notes, I love a good double power bomb. And that shows a lot of strength from Jericho.
Yep.
You don't see that very often, where it's a power bomb and then staying locked in. Sure, you can talk about Wardlow in AEW and his powerbomb symphony, but he lets them go and then pulls them back in for the powerbomb. Jericho, no. He drops the powerbomb, stays hooked in, and pulls them back up for the second one. Yeah,
it was, and for being a special unadvertised match, I mean, this show is so far 2 for 2.
Absolutely.
2 for 2 on this show. And before we head into match 3, we probably ought to pay the bills, because we're going to talk about match 3 for quite some time.
Yeah, I agree. So we'll send things over to our promo team here, talking about the For Fantasy's Sake podcast every Sunday morning, 10 to 11:30.
Make sure you tune into For Frequency's Sake on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch each Sunday during the football season from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. The boys from For Fantasy's Sake will be bringing the fire fantasy football takes, updating you on the week's rankings and injuries, and getting you ready for your fantasy football matchups each and every week. The show is interactive, so be sure to send your questions. You can find them at For Frequency's Sake on Facebook, at FFSQC on Twitter, or you can send them an email at forfantasysakeqc@gmail.com.
We are back on the air here. Thank you, Joe, for our podcast brethren from the Educated Ignorance, covering that promo for us. Before we get to the next match, we go backstage to your favorite and mine as far as our backstage interview team goes. Mean by God, Gene.
Yeah, this is our first appearance of Mean Gene on the night, and he is backstage with none other than the beautiful, the blonde, the queen of World Championship Wrestling, Miss Deborah McMichael. And if Deborah McMichael's around, whether or not she's managing him or not, you know that Mongo McMichael's not far behind.
That is true. Mongo is right there. Deborah is talking about her mystery man, who she's going to accompany to the ring to face Mongo. We don't know who that is yet. We'll get there in a little bit here, but Mongo storms in, and he gets in Deborah's face. He wants everything back: the ring, the Rolex, the credit cards. Deborah says she earned everything by putting up with Mongo and his family.
I'm sure Deborah earned everything. Wink, wink, nod, nod. She is not giving any of it back, and if Mongo wants it, he's going to have to come get it. We're obviously foreshadowing to the match later on in the night, but right now we are going to make room for match number 3 of the night. It is advertised as a mask versus championship match. Your mask is Rey Mysterio Jr., and he is taking on Eddie Guerrero for the WCW Cruiserweight Championship. And if you've never seen this match, don't listen to a thing we're going to say. Pause the podcast and go watch it first. Okay? And for those that have seen the match, I probably can't put into words what this match means to WCW, what it means to both these guys, what it means to the Cruiserweight division, as undoubtedly this is looked upon as the greatest cruiserweight match of all time between Mysterio and Guerrero. Shivani and Heenan both agree before this match that Eddie Guerrero is probably pound for pound the best in the world. And you see Eddie Guerrero, and he's starting to bulk up a little bit at this point in 97. Eddie Guerrero looks amazing.
And, Nick, I'm just going to say right now, first thing I have in my notes. Okay, first 2 things I have in my notes. Ray comes out. giving his mask away to a young fan. This is I think the first time he does that, and this is something he does throughout his career. He comes out with a mask, he hands it to a young fan in the crowd who is right there ready to go. But the second thing I have, Eddie has at this point turned heel. He's not a face anymore. He is a heel. Nick, is this an early version of the lie, cheat, and steal of Eddie Guerrero that we see in WWE?
You definitely are going down the road I was going to go, because I'm going to reference Rey Mysterio's ring gear is like a one-piece suit with the mask included in it. Eddie starts his lie, cheat, and steal thing by trying to take the mask off during the match. Rey is messing with that, but yeah, maybe the seeds of a later Eddie Guerrero gimmick are planted here. I thought that too. That's a great point. I'm glad we thought that up. I guess great minds do think alike, too. But
absolutely.
We do not pause. We try to pat ourselves on the back here as much as we can. But and once again, Mike Tenay comes in. This is the ninth match for Rey Mysterio. He's 8-0 heading into this one. Per Tenay. I mean, come on, man. This is great. I love this stuff. I have Eddie puts Rey in an ab stretch. Eddie is jacked. I mean, he's a rock at this point. And Tenay continues to give us a brief wrestling history in Mexico. And we quickly forget how great both of these guys are. These guys are both phenomenal. And they had so much more good wrestling after this match in '97.
Yeah, and for those of you who are fans of Rey Mysterio, fans of Eddie Guerrero, I'm going to say two things about this. First of all, this is my pick for match of the night on this card. Second of all, if you're a video game player and you have WWE 2K22 and you have not played the I can't think of the name of the mode. The mode where you play as Rey Mysterio.
This career mode? Is it career
mode?
Yeah.
No, it's showcase. The showcase mode. That's what it's called. If you go into the showcase mode, not only do you get to experience this match, you get to be Rey Mysterio in this matchup. It is well worth your time. And I'm going to come out on a limb here and say it. If you are going to watch any match this week, whether it's current product, whether it's past wrestling, this is the match to watch.
This match and the action in it are a big part of what drew my eyes to WCW back in 1997. WWF wasn't doing this type of stuff. The high flying, the lucha libre. It wasn't getting showcased like it was on WCW. And it introduced me to a bunch of new stars. Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, Juventud, Chavo, Ultimo Dragon, among others. Dean Malenko was in that. Billy Kidman. I mean,
La Parka.
When you tuned in to Nitro back in the 90s, it was for two things. It was for the NWO, for me, and for the Cruiserweights. And this was a giant slice of what the Cruiserweight division was like in WCW. I think it's one of the things that WCW can proudly hold over WWF that they had that WWF didn't have. And this match may be the standard bearer for the best cruiserweight match in WCW history. Comes in just under 15 minutes too, so it's not like you're going back and watching a 65-minute match. 15 minutes and you won't regret it. This match is amazing. And Bobby the Brain Heenan, a man that never had a loss for words, said he's never seen anything like this in my life. And up until that point, a lot of people, in America hadn't really.
No, for sure. And this match, one of the things that I love about WCW, they know how to open a show because the cruiserweights usually open the show. I am so glad they did not put this match on first. As much as it would have been a great opener, I think it's right where it needs to be because you've got the great opener with Ultimo Dragon and Yuji Nagata. They started with a cruiserweight style match. And they build, this is a building to a crescendo, this entire show. And this match is just by far one of the, like you said, this is the greatest match in WCW history for the cruiserweights. 100%, I agree with you. I couldn't disagree at all.
Well, even though this match wasn't the main event, it goes on third. I'll make an argument that you could say it was the main event because, in my opinion, the show completely changes after the first three matches.
Yeah, I can agree with that. It kind of
the first three matches feel like a wrestling pay-per-view, and then after this match, it turns into an NWO pay-per-view. I know it's the main storyline, but matches 4, 5, 6, 7, it's like they're not even analyzing the action. All they're talking about is what Hogan's going to do, what Bischoff's going to do.
Yeah, and that pissed me off. I'm not going to lie. We'll get into that when we talk about the next match.
Yeah, I mean, you can completely draw this show into two shows. You could end it right there, and it's a pretty good Halloween Havoc. It's still a really good show, but those three matches, boom, 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 right out the gate, are why wrestling fans watch wrestling. High-paced action, it's great, and then we go to the next 4 or 5, 3, 4 matches, and all we're going to talk about is the NWO, and not even talk about what's going on in the ring. But I digress.
In my opinion, it sucks the air completely out of the room.
Oh, sucked the air out of the pay-per-view for sure. It totally did. Yes.
But I mean, I still have a lot of notes on this match. I want to stay here for a few minutes because
not a problem. Not a problem.
One of the things I have, you've got Eddie Guerrero tied. Rey Mysterio gets tied in a tree of woe. They don't refer to it as that. I don't know if that term has been invented yet for this particular position, but if you're not familiar, the said wrestler is tied up with his legs under the top turnbuckle, hanging upside down in the corner. Eddie Guerrero goes for a baseball slide, and Rey sits up, so Eddie smacks his groin right into the ring post. And honestly, that's where the tide turned, because Eddie Guerrero had been dominating this match. You mentioned, him going after the match. Early on, you see Eddie shredding, like completely, literally shredding one of the eye holes of Rey Mysterio's mask.
Yes, that's making it hard for Rey to see and keeping the mask on his face. So the dastardly heeled Guerrero goes right after the mask. Great move on his part. And Rey had the mask sewn into his ring gear, so you couldn't just rip it off without ripping most of his, the ring gear off. I love how Rey looks like the purple Riddler here. I had that written down.
I noticed that as well.
I love the question marks. There's two guys that can wear them. It's Rey and it's the Riddler, regardless of what Batman movie it is.
The psychology in this match alone is just fantastic, especially when you've got the dastardly heel and Eddie Guerrero trying to rip off the mask of Rey Mysterio throughout the match. And Rey doing everything he can to avoid that from happening.
And the mask is everything to a lucha, as Mike Tenay continues to drive into us. I mean, Tenay was the MVP of the first 3 matches, giving us background, keeping the match moving. God, this match is so good. It had been a while since I've seen this. I've seen this match, obviously, before. But I bet it had been over a year since I sat down and watched it without any interruptions. And as they say, it aged really well.
One thing that I noted here, at one point, Rey hits a head scissor over the top rope. And if this had been 2 years prior, Rey would have been disqualified for pulling Eddie over the top rope. That's not the case here, and that's a good thing. But I always thought, what do you think of that rule in old school WCW of if you throw someone over the top rope, you're disqualified?
Yeah, that was kind of part of like what the NWA was when the NWA and WCW were working together. I was never a fan of it, but it was different. It made people not do something, so it kind of added story to matches. I didn't really like it, but I also didn't hate it. So,
and towards the end of the match here, Rey is going for one of his springboard Hurricane Ranas, but Eddie catches him and throws it into a backbreaker. They eventually work their way back to the corner where Eddie goes for whether you call it the Razor's Edge, the Splash Mountain of Matt Hardy fame, he's going for a crucifix powerbomb off of the top rope.
Yes.
Ray counters it, turns it into a pinning combination, and gets the victory here to win the Cruiserweight title and keep his mask on his face.
Yeah, and the fans genuinely popped. Like, everybody was invested in this match, and it had, like, it was building to the crescendo, and the way that it ended, it was beautiful. Kind of reminiscent of the '92 SummerSlam ending with how Bulldog pinned Bret Hart. Ray kind of pinned Eddie Guerrero with that same pinning combination, and gets to keep his mask, and then takes Eddie's Cruiserweight belt.
Yeah, and this match, like you said, is just shy of 15 minutes. It's 13 minutes and 51 seconds. But those essentially 14 minutes, like we've been saying this whole time, well worth your time. Go back, revisit Halloween Havoc 97. Fast forward to Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero. You won't regret it. I promise.
No, you absolutely won't. I mean, I can't put it over anymore. It's Eddie Guerrero in the early light heat steel, if you want to look at it that way, and it's Rey Mysterio as the Purple Riddler. You can't go wrong either way.
No, and you can't go wrong when you toss over to Mean Gene Okerlund talking about the WCW hotline. He gives us the number, but if you're reading the banner on Peacock, it's going to tell you that number is no longer in service. So boys and girls, do not call the hotline, but be sure to get your parents' permission, like we've said previously, to listen to Card Subject to Change.
Yes, we do need parent permission to listen to the show. We won't charge per minute like the WCW hotline did, but kids get your parents' permission.
So after Mean Gene plugs his hotline, we go back to Hollywood Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff, and
they're making demands.
Rambling. Yeah, they're making demands. Hogan is rambling about his pythons to start things off, but that's Hogan. When doesn't he talk about his giant arms? But Piper threw himself into this match here. Hogan is flat out refusing to wrestle unless the WCW can guarantee that Sting will not be dropping from the ceiling during this match.
Yeah, Hogan's pretty much saying you're not going to have a main event unless you can promise that Sting will not make an appearance. And Bischoff and Hogan at this point decide they're going to hijack the show, and they've made demands. Will those demands be met, CZ? I don't know.
We'll find out as the night progresses for sure.
As the night progresses, all I can think about as Alex Wright is coming out to the ring is you dancing like Alex
Wright. We have that video. I have not published it. I refuse to publish it, although maybe I should. That's right, Nick. What a great segue, because the next match is Steve Mongo McMichael against Deborah's mystery partner, and that mystery partner is Das Wunderkid, Alex Wright.
And Alex Wright is in pretty good shape, but I noted Alex Wright is wearing the Fat Boy trunks. I don't understand that. He's got the Fat Boy trunks on, but he's in decent shape. And he is doing the the Alex Wright boogie, whatever you want to call it. And all I can think about is you doing
that. Like I said, I have that video. Since we're talking about it, Nick, I might let you talk me into posting it, but don't get your hopes up, because
no, that's totally up to you. I'm not gonna put you on the spot.
My only problem is my giant gut is coming out from under my shirt while I'm doing it.
It's totally up to you.
But no, the first thing I have as we're talking about Mongo versus Alex Wright is the commentators don't give a shit about this match.
Yeah, Alex, the crowd's firmly behind Mongo. My next note, Shivani and Brain are discussing the cage. Don't even care about calling the action. It's the biggest cage match of all time, don't you know? And then I put, is it bigger than the Chamber of Horrors? I really don't know if it is in the history landscape of WCW cage match. But is this cage match we're going to see later bigger than Chamber of Horrors? I don't think so.
I don't know. I don't think so either.
How do you make an Alex Wright and a Steve McMichael match better?
You talk about a cage match while the match is going on.
Well,
that's the only thing I can think of.
And you bring in Goldberg for a run-in.
Right? Very early on, Goldberg comes in and just completely takes out Mongo. After Mongo hits the tombstone on Alex Wright, Goldberg comes out of nowhere, spear, jackhammer. Goldberg physically lifts up Alex Wright and drops him on Mongo for the end of the match.
And the whole time, referee Charles Robinson is unbeknownst to this going on behind him and cannot feel the ring shake with all this action.
Nah. Well, why would he? I mean, he's too busy talking with Deborah.
I know. Goldberg looks really young because he is really young here. He looks a lot younger. Slim down, comes in and wrecks shop. 1, 2, 3. And then most importantly, not only does he help Alex Wright beat Mongo, he also gets his payment for being said hitman and gets Mongo's Super Bowl ring, much to the dismay of the crowd and to the announcers. The announcers are just beside it. That's his Super Bowl ring that he won with the 85 Bears.
And here's the thing I have about Goldberg's interference. We go to the replay after this match, and Goldberg hits the spear. You mentioned that Charles Robinson doesn't see anything. The ref doesn't see any of this going on. Mongo's head is practically touching his leg after Goldberg's spear.
Listen, is it really a spear? I liken it to when you have a small child in your arms and you lay them down gently and slide your arms out from underneath so they don't wake up. That's what that spear looked like. Like you're putting a small child to bed just because it was right behind referee Charles Robinson. Like he speared him and then like lays him down like a little child, like he's tucking him into bed.
You know, I'm going to go off on a tangent here. You say that, and it makes me think. You and I talked off air earlier today. I finally watched Dynamite, or the end of it, because I had watched some of it earlier in the week. You saying that reminds me of Chris Jericho's Tombstone Piledriver on Jerry Lynn onto the ROH title. The weakest tombstone I have ever seen.
Yeah,
Jericho just as daintily as possible drops to his knees. It doesn't look like a vicious move at all, and Jerry Lynn is absolutely just fine. Much like Mongo McMichael in this match.
Correct. That's a good connection point there between those two. Once again, we talked about Jericho earlier, almost ending his career. He could have ended Jerry Lynn's life with that horrendous tombstone. Let's just leave the pile driver to the guys that should be doing them. I'm just going to leave that there. But you're right. Goldberg with a physically crippling lay the child down spear for bed, and he's got the Super Bowl ring, and then he takes out Alex Wright after the match as well, just to show that he is Goldberg and he'll do whatever the hell he wants.
And of course, the crowd is still new to Goldberg, but eventually you're gonna hear his music play, and you're gonna hear Goldberg as he's coming to the ring. But that's in the future. That's in the future.
Yep. That match ends thankfully. I don't know who was happier. I don't know who was happier the match ended. Me, you, or the announcers. Ended 6.5 minutes. Alex Wright got the win with the assist from Goldberg. Goldberg cleans house afterward. And then we now go backstage to the Macho Man and
DDP, you are a marked man.
Step into it, DDP.
I have that in my notes. How many times can we hear or see the words snap into it? It's on the back of Macho Man's jacket. He says it about 20 million times during the interview.
Macho Man's no dummy. He knows about product placement. This is Slim Jim, Halloween Havoc, man. So this is his time to shine. And Slim Jim executives are, they're crossing off a box every time he says snap into it. So everybody's happy here.
And not just crossing off a box. They're writing a check every time he says it. Macho Man is getting, getting a check every time he says the word snap into it.
Yes, they are. Thank God that was a short segment because, hey, we got more matches to cover here. We're going to cover them. I don't know if the announce team gave a crap about them, but we're going to cover them here briefly. Match number 5 on the show, a special attraction match because it's male versus female.
It is non-sanctioned.
It's non-sanctioned, and of course it's non-title because Disco Inferno is your reigning television champion. So non-title match, man versus woman. The only notes I took on this match that goes just under 10 minutes, about what you would expect. That's about the only notes I took for this match.
You've got Disco running in and out of the ring. Jacqueline playing chase here. Jacqueline finally catches Disco and just pounds on him, gets the win about 7 or 8 minutes after she should have gotten the win, in my opinion. This match should have gone a minute and a half.
I agree. I should have told you ahead of time, man. I really hope you take this part of the show over because that match did nothing for me. It was about what you would expect.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. This was, okay. China in the WWE, they could get away with it. Jeff Jarrett, Chris Jericho against China, just to name a couple things. That Good Housekeeping match that was just horrendous in the WWE, but WCW did not know how to book a male versus female match, and it showed. Like I said, this match went 7 or 8 minutes longer than it should have. It should have just been a squash. Disco comes in, Jacqueline comes in and just lays him out, gets the pinfall. Over. End of story.
Well, you're right. Every show, every match has a place on the show, and this one did because it's the crappiest match of the night, and we get the turd out of the way about halfway through.
And then, after this, we go right into 2 wrestling greats. We've got Kurt Hennig versus Ric Flair for the U.S. Championship. And, this match is coming off of Flair getting injured, thanks to Kurt Hennig. Throwback to our episode last month in September, Fall Brawl War Games, where Kurt Hennig smashed Ric Flair's head with the War Games cage door, to end the night. And this is Flair's revenge. This is where Flair is coming back to give Kurt Hennig his comeuppance.
Oh,
and the U.S. title is on the line
because Hennig wears a Flair robe to the ring, sleeveless. So that itself is a crime. Hennig has some crimes against wrestling and humanity here by defacing a robe of Ric Flair. And Hennig looks great, man. I wish, man, he would have still with us and how much more he could have gave the wrestling world. But is this the first time we see a sprinting Ric Flair to the ring? I mean, Flair had enough. There wasn't going to be a big entrance with the music. He didn't have the robe. He was sprinting to the ring to go get him some Kurt Hennig.
He comes out just lightning fast. I'm sure he is vastly insulted by the fact that his robe has been desecrated by the Perfect One. And, like I said, this is revenge for Fall Brawl War Games. Hennig turning on the Horseman. And, Flair starts by going after the leg, wanting to obviously get Hennig in the figure 4. But Hennig turns the tables and is going after Flair's leg at one point. One thing I have noted, Rick, I always love a patented Flair flop. Tossed into the turnbuckle and flipping outside the ring. That is one of my favorite moments of any Ric Flair match.
I know it is. I know you love that. It's standard, right? It has to happen. I have one here. a good back and forth. It's a classic brawl. Then it turns into isolating your body part. Flair gets his robe back. I'm kind of my notes here. I put the pen down and just kind of want to enjoy this match. And I didn't take a lot of notes, but I do have here towards the end. Hennig is hanging in the tree of woe, and Flair this is enough. Flair is PO'd. I don't understand how the U.S. heavyweight belt could be in the ring the whole damn time and the ref not take it out of there. And the announcers call them out for it. It's like, get the belt out of there. Get the belt out of there. Why is the belt still in there? We never know why the belt was still in there.
No.
But Flair does a jumping, sliding drop kick to Hennig's face where the belt was around. And the sell job by Hennig is right up there with Abdullah the Butcher in the Chamber of Horrors match.
And I feel like you're reading off of my notes instead of your own, because I have almost exactly the same thing, word for word.
Well, seriously?
Sans the Abdullah the Butcher comment? Literally, yes. The Tree of Woe.
What'd you write? What'd you have down?
So, my exact wording, Flair puts Hennig in the Tree of Woe, wraps the belt around Kurt's head, and stomps the belt right into the face of the Perfect One. That's what I have word for word.
And then Perfect sells it like he's Abdullah in the Chamber of Horrors. Sits there shaking and convulsing. Oh, God, I actually laughed out loud at that part. I thought it was pretty good.
And then after Flair takes out Hennig, out comes Conan along with the baddest man in the NWO. That's right, it's Vincent coming to the ring to help Kurt Hennig out.
I mean, anytime, that's the first thing I think of in NWO is Vincent.
Yeah, top dog, right? He gets top billing over even Hogan.
I mean, the NWO is at the forefront of WCW. They've taken over. In WCW, throughout the show, this is finally they're putting their foot down, right? This is WCW kind of drawing the line in the sand. We're done. We're fighting back. So that's kind of the underlying tone in the show. If you have me to add, if you're asking my opinion, and we kind of get that message when we go backstage after the backstage segment with WCW.com. I just died laughing writing that. We get Macho and Mean Gene, but I wanted to. We'll get back to Macho and Mean Gene, but I'm sitting here talking about J.J. Dillon. This is the first time we see J.J. Dillon in quite some time. He is the quote-unquote authoritative role now of World Championship Wrestling, and this is WCW kind of like, okay, making a stand, and he is showing Bischoff the notarized, list of demands. And J.J. Dillon, when I'm having a bad day, I'm going to think of J.J. Dillon in this segment and how he can just cheer anybody up. I mean, Bischoff's out there trying to piss on his parade, and J.J. Dillon's just smiling all happy and just shoving a paper in that guy's face. I just love J.J. Dillon here in this segment, and it put a smile on my face.
And I love JJ. I love Bischoff playing off of James J. Dillon in this here. Bischoff's just, you can't do this. It's a well-placed and a well-put-together segment for sure.
Yes, you can, Bischoff. Yes, he can do it because it's pro wrestling, and you can do anything you want.
That is very true. After J.J. Dillon, after J.J. is talking about how the main event is going to go on, whether Bischoff and Hogan like it or not, the next thing I have in my notes is David Pinzer announcing the special guest referee of this match. He's wrestled over 5,000 matches, a two-time world heavyweight champion. Here comes the living legend, Larry Zbyszko. Like we noted earlier, he's not on commentary because he's got business in the ring. And that business is to referee the match between Lex Luger and Scott Hall.
Yeah, Larry Zbyszko, I first knew about Larry Zbyszko as an announcer in WCW, growing up watching wrestling. Go back and watch. He is a classic heel in the AWA, two-time champion there. And Zbyszko, Zbyszko's the perfect guy for this role the more and more I think about it. He was always the squeaky wheel for WCW and hated NWO despite the fact they would bully him. And now here he is, the special guest referee, as we have Luger versus Scott Hall, and Scott Hall with 6. Zbyszko is the ref. Zbyszko looks like $1 million. And my sincere question to you is this. This is an honest question. Who's cooler than Scott Hall? Tell me Tell me a cooler wrestler than Scott Hall. I'll sit here. I'll hang up and listen.
No, that is a great question, and I don't know. I don't think there honestly is one. Scott Hall is the coolest wrestler alive. The whole. I apologize. He has passed, but the coolest wrestler to ever walk into the ring. Let me put it that way. My apologies to the late great Scott Hall.
He's been going. This past week marked the year anniversary of Scott Hall's passing. But I just put on here, who is cooler than Scott Hall? Scott Hall's the most cool over member of the NWO. I mean, when he walks out, he looks like he doesn't give a crap, but he's just so cool. I mean, I'll argue this too. The WWF convinced the world that he was Cuban. Okay. He pulled off the fact that he's Cuban when he's not Cuban. Razor Ramon. Scott Hall is so freaking cool, and it's too bad. I hope kids and wrestling fans that are today that don't know a lot about the past, go back and watch Scott Hall because you can learn a ton from him. I put here Luger and Hall both look great. It's just not a great match.
No.
I thought it was really slow, and it needed to be slow to take up some time. Obviously they teased about Zbyszko is catching the NWO at every turn that they try to cheat. And then, Zbyszko and Hall get physical. That was good. And then Bischoff and Zbyszko get physical. And then, of course, the numbers game. That's the NWO, right? They win the numbers game here.
Yeah, that's their MO.
And doing so, Sick does the damage to Larry Zbyszko and to Lex Luger.
And, Zbyszko gets to the point, he had enough before the interference, but Bischoff comes out to distract Larry. Six takes him out. It's a whole cluster at the end, but that's what the NWO did. They come out there, they thrive on distraction and controversy.
Well, distraction and controversy. I'm glad you said that, CZ, because we get Six interferes. Zbyszko has a hunch that he interferes, counts 1, 2, and pauses a good 3 seconds before he hits 3. Scott Hall's your winner. Here's where WCW gets themselves in trouble.
Yeah.
We have a referee going to replay. Well, if you're going to do it here, you got to do it every damn match. We can't just go to replay willy-nilly when we want to. But Zbyszko goes to replay. And it defies all refereeing logic for booking in wrestling today. And it's ruled a no contest, and the match is going to start back up.
Is this the first and only time that we have seen a referee call for an instant replay in wrestling?
I don't think it's the first and only time. It just doesn't happen very often. Like, as a fan, you're yelling every time, why don't you go to replay? Why don't you go to replay? I don't know why it was used here. But I guess when you're a former world champion, you're a ref, you can go to replay. Zbyszko goes to replay, starts the match back up, and Luger's having his way with Hall and has Hall in the torture rack. As Zbyszko is signaling for the bell to ring, that's when the ring gets overrun and Zbyszko gets destroyed.
Yeah, and this is a build for something even bigger that's coming between Zbyszko and the NWO. And I'm going to just jump ahead a little bit while still talking about this match. After this match, we're going to get a preview for the big battle royal that WCW puts on every year, World War III. That is the November pay-per-view. We are not covering that. We've got a full jam-packed November with a lot of other stuff, so we are skipping that. But a little preview to Starrcade in December, which we are covering. This is going to build to a match there with Larry Zbyszko actually getting in the ring. And that's all I'm going to say. We'll talk about that down the road, but this whole program between Zbyszko and Scott Hall and the NWO, it's been bubbling for a while, and it's going to boil over at the end of the year.
It is, and I'm looking forward to that show because that is one of the all-timers if you're a WCW fan. And hey, good job there plugging the show in the future. I mean, we don't want to give away too much here on Card Subject to Change, but yeah, I like that. I'm looking forward to that show. Starrcade 97 is a good one. But we're right. I mean, it's just the NWO has invaded and it's interwoven into everything. So as much as we want to get frustrated about it, it's the biggest storyline in wrestling, one of the biggest storylines in wrestling history. So obviously we're in the midst of it when we're back in 1997 and we're talking about it.
Yeah. And the NWO, like you said, Nick, this pay-per-view went from 3 great matches with nothing, with nonstop, to just the air being sucked out of the room and everything turning to the NWO show.
Yes, everything did get sucked out of the room, but the air got sucked out of the room. But have no fear, because in our next match, CZ, this might be the first, last, and only time I've ever seen a Las Vegas sudden death match.
That's true. But before we get to that, I think we need to take another time out and talk about the websites for frequency's sake.
In addition to bringing fire on the mic, the team at For Frequency's Sake is still bringing it online as well. Check out ForFantasySakeQC.com this season for college DFS, Survivor League, and betting advice each and every week of this football season. Again, that is ForFantasySakeQC.com for college DFS, Survivor League, and betting advice each week during the football season.
Thank you very much. We are back here, Card Subject to Change. We are on the go-home segment here, closing out our review of Halloween Havoc 97. And before we went to the break, we were talking about this might have been my first, last, and only time I'd seen a Las Vegas sudden death match. CZ, for the benefit of the listeners, can you explain what a Las Vegas sudden death match is?
I can. And excuse me, I heard the name of this, the stipulation of this match, and I'm thinking, what in the hell is that? But they explain it is the only way to win is if your opponent cannot answer a 10 count. So essentially, if you look in current times, this is a last man standing match with a different name.
It's a last man standing match in WWE. It's a Texas death match in AEW. I love Savage. I love DDP. But I've seen so many of these last man standing matches lately. I put the pen down and sat and enjoyed the match. I liked the match. But breaking it down, it was just I think I've seen just about every possible way you can do a last man standing match, right?
Right.
But with it being a Las Vegas sudden death match, you got Savage with Wiz versus DDP. These guys, the chemistry was great. This is probably one of the better rivalries that WCW put out there. Between NWO and WCW was Savage. They did have some good stuff.
If I'm not mistaken, this rivalry was the rivalry of the year of 1997.
You will have to double check. I'm glad you could remember that. I can't quite remember, but it does sound like it was. And these guys got together a bunch. And the bonus thing for me in this match, they used the set, the entrance set, the fake graveyard, the coffins, the tombstones, the styrofoam headstones. I loved it. But I love the use of the set. I mean, finally we got to see, your script's wide open when you do one of these last man standing matches. So they went all over the place, and fighting in the crowd. It's been so done so much. nowadays. It was kind of neat to see fighting in the crowd in the 90s and how the fans really did stay back. They weren't trying to pat the wrestlers. Security did a pretty good job. So from that standpoint, it was good to see that. But, Savage and DDP, add the stipulation, and you're going to have a good match. And this one turned out to be a pretty good, decent one as well. Wasn't the best, wasn't the worst. It was there in the middle.
Yeah, and for this whole rivalry, they've put on a lot of really decent to great matches. One thing we'll talk about in the future at some point is their match in Moline, the only pay-per-view so far to take place in Moline, Illinois, at the Great American Bash of this year. We'll talk about that on a future show.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
What I have in my notes are a couple of great commentary moments. I have a lot of notes here, but those are the thing that stands out to me here. Dusty Rhodes calls Page and says he has a 270-pound springboard onto Savage early in the match. When they go into the graveyard, the set, and the entranceway, you hear Bobby Heenan say, "What do you want on your tombstone?" And
yes, he did.
My favorite line, though, is from Dusty. Dusty says, "That's the real tombstone pile driver right there."
Oh, hey, thanks, Dusty. No pun intended, right?
Right. I love Dusty Rhodes on commentary. I don't think it happened often enough in this era. He is on commentary in early WCW pay-per-views before the NWO. I'm glad he came back for this one to fill in for Larry Zbyszko because he had some classic lines like that.
Heenan was kind of like leaning towards face Heenan here because Heenan was strongly on the WCW side. So it is kind of enjoyable to hear Schiavone and Rhodes and Heenan all on the same page as opposed to, going back and forth. So that was good. I did like that part of it. Savage does win the sudden death match a little after the 18-minute mark. And I believe that's after DDP got low blowed and stumbled out of the ring after he got punished for most of the match.
Yeah, and Page gets actually hit by a camera from Macho Man, too.
That's right.
Pointed out that Macho takes the camera from Jackie Crockett from the Jim Crockett promotion era, which the commentators dropped that name. That was a nice callback there. Kimberly, DDP's then wife, comes out to help out during the match, and her and Elizabeth have what Dusty goes nuts about: catfight, catfight, catfight.
Catfight. That was very good. I totally forgot about Dusty Rhodes. Catfight.
And there's some shenanigans with the ref. Nick Patrick ends up coming out to help out. Page actually finds himself hitting a diamond cutter, but Savage holds the ropes to block it, which was a really cool spot. You don't see that very often. Page go. I mean, you and I, we've talked a little bit about this in the past, but, obviously the diamond cutter, the RKO, they're very similar moves, if not the same. At some point, we should talk about who pulled it off better, but you don't see that move blocked or countered very often unless it's like somebody, when Randy does it, he'll go for it and someone will just push him off.
Yes.
But I don't remember the last time I saw someone grab the rope to block that, other than this match.
Correct. It was a good touch there. It was a good touch, and gosh, I forgot about the camera. I mean, we're not even talking about the most vicious shot of the match. Liz delivers the sugar glass over the head of referee Mickey J. He was assigned to this match, and Mickey J took the glass tray over the head. And that was kind of what sealed it for the NWO.
And, here comes, at the end of the match, you see Sting.
Who?
And I'm doing air quotes. I know you can't see me. We're not on video.
Who do you see? Who do you see?
Sting!
I put on my note, I'm seeing Stings.
And
the pun was
commentators point out that this is Obviously,
The pun
Hulk
was
Hogan,
intended.
dressed up in a Sting mask, comes out with a bat, delivers the blow. Yeah. Of course, after the match, DDP does the stretcher job while the commentators, like I said, they're speculating that Sting was really Hulk Hogan. And, Savage comes after Page again while he's being wheeled backstage. This rivalry doesn't seem like it's over because they're still fighting after the match is done.
Yeah, it moves on to the next thing. That's how they advance this. And I loved the touch. I loved how the battle, battle might have ended briefly, but the war continued up the aisle. And that's exactly what, if you aren't familiar with WCW in the late 90s, that's exactly what WCW and NWO was. It was like this, all the time when the feud was hot and heavy. And this is definitely part, you're definitely entwined here into the story in this match.
That is true. And that brings us to the main event, the cage match between the rowdy one, Roddy Piper, and Hollywood Hulk Hogan. And Nick, it's my favorite time of the show because who do we have bringing us into this match? Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
Michael Buffer, synonymous with big matches in WCW, man. This guy made so much money off of Turner Broadcasting in WCW. They had him for just about every main event Nitro, every main event of pay-per-view. But Michael Buffer became synonymous with WCW, and we get him here before, of course, the biggest cage match, one-on-one match of all time.
Absolutely, and it's always great. I love Michael Buffer. I love that he's synonymous with WCW and their big events because, like we said multiple times on this show, it gives that event or that match a big fight feel, whether it has it or not.
Well, this match did have the big fight feel. Of course, it has Michael Buffer. It's got guys that were on the WrestleMania 1 card: Roddy Piper, Hollywood Hulk Hogan. It's the biggest stale cage match of all time. It also is the most janky cage of all time, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But the match starts, and I have a few notes here. I put Piper looks great. Piper looks in really good shape. I put the cage is janky, and why would Piper bury his head in Hulk Hogan's ass?
Wow, I can't even comment on that. I have no idea.
Do you remember that part? Hogan's climbing on the side of the cage, and Piper is up there trying to get him off. And Piper buries his head in Hulk Hogan's ass and starts biting him.
Oh, yes. I do have the biting written down in here. Piper
the optics on that were not good. And if you want a good chuckle, go back and watch that part of the show.
Here's the thing with Piper. In my opinion, he had to be hungry. There's no other reason why he's biting Hulk Hogan. He should have had a Snickers before he came to the ring. All I'm going to say.
Excuse me? What should he have had before he went to the ring?
He should have had a Snickers bar.
No. Who's sponsoring? He should have had a Slim Jim.
He should have had a Slim Jim. One thing that I have noted before the match even starts is Hogan comes out by himself. No Bischoff, no NWO. He is alone.
He is alone. So that was probably part of the terms on that notarized agreement that J.J. Dillon brought out earlier. So, yeah, Hogan comes out on his own. Piper's out on his own. We're going to have this one-on-one cage match.
And Piper has Hogan's title belt with him. I'm trying to remember. I wish I had watched a couple episodes of Nitro before this pay-per-view because I'm not sure how or why Piper has the belt that is rightfully Hogan's at this point.
I did not see the follow-up Nitro or the Nitro going into this. You got to think it's one of those things where he has it and takes it from Hogan, but it's obviously not his.
And of course, Piper's within his right because I'm 95% sure he's the commissioner at this point. Is he not?
Is it him or Dillon?
I think
Dylan's the authoritative role. I think Piper is the commissioner at this time.
because he came in at this point as the commissioner of WCW to kind of bring order and rival the NWO.
Yes, and Piper's, fighting back here. Piper's out here on his own. You're right. I'm trying to think. I did not write down how far we get into this match before things go south or things turn sideways, whatever way you want to put it. How far into this match before the NWO, uses their flex?
I don't have times written down on that, but I have in my notes is eventually, the match is going on. You have Randy Anderson as the referee. He is outside of the cage for most of the match. He's just there to count the pinfall or watch the escape. Hogan eventually calls him into the ring to count a pinfall, but at least 4 times in my notes, because literally there are at least 4 of them I have. It's Sting coming down from the crowd, from the ramp, from all over the place.
Yeah, I thought when the second one came down, I'm like, you know what? That could be Sting. The other ones, though, the other ones were really bad. Like, they had the Sting mask on, the Sting wig. I'm surprised no one ripped off, like, the Sting wig as people walked by him in the crowd. I mean, the Sting coming through the crowd was really bad. But I'll give him credit. The second Sting that came out, no, that could be Sting.
We basically have a Sting extravaganza during this match.
Yes, we do.
And I think it's after the numerous Stings come out that this one goes off the rails. Piper puts Hogan in the sleeper, gets the technical submission. Hogan does not submit. He passes out. But this was not for the title. So there's no title on the line. Piper is not the champion. But Bischoff comes out after the submission. Sting, quotes, comes into the ring, but it's obviously a bogus Sting. And you hear the crowd, chanting as Piper's getting his ass kicked after the match by Bischoff and Hogan. The crowd is chanting, "We want Sting." Because they know that these 9 million Stings around the ring are not the real deal.
They want Sting. They think they're going to get Sting, but they don't get Sting.
What they get instead is a cautionary tale for any wrestling fan. A fan climbs over the cage and gets in the ring. Folks, don't do this. This doesn't happen often in these times, but if you are a fan and you are getting in the ring, I promise you 100% you're going to get your ass handed to you.
I was caught off guard by this at first. I had completely forgotten about this part of the show. And I'm actually surprised it's still on the show. I'm surprised they haven't edited it out.
Yeah, I agree. This is brutal. Hogan and Savage are just going to town on this fan, and honestly, security probably saved his life.
Security saved his life because Hogan and Macho did not want to get off him.
No.
When you get in the ring, you're fair game, and you're probably going to get your ass kicked. And those guys had the adrenaline, Piper, Hogan, or it was Savage and Hogan that were beating up the fan.
And it makes sense because it keeps them in their heel personas, because Piper is the face here. You don't want to see Piper beating on a fan as he's the good guy in the story. Although he probably would have joined in had he been part of the NWO. But no, anytime. I mean, you look back in recent history, you had a fan come after Seth Rollins not that long ago, just running from somewhere behind the entrance ramp and taking him down as he's coming back from his match that particular night. And he gets his ass kicked too.
Yeah, there was some legit ass kicking going on in the janky cage, and when that fan went in there, seriously, like I pulled my disconnect away and I'm like, oh crap. I mean, what? Yeah, I would go beat the crap out of this guy too. I mean, he's affecting their livelihood. They don't know if he's on. This is 97 before these security and wanding down. That's kind of what I went back to. I mean, the security isn't like what it was today, where you got patted down, metal detected. This is 97. So,
and here's the thing: 97 is before kayfabe really got broken. There's not an internet. The internet is in its infancy here, so we don't know a lot of the inner workings of the wrestling business. These guys are still legitimate badasses in everyone's minds. You know, this is an actual fight that is going on. I mean, 97 is kind of questionable. People are starting to get clued in that wrestling is not necessarily faked, but choreographed. But yeah, don't go into the ring as a fan. You're going to get beat.
You're going to get your ass kicked, and no one will feel sorry for you.
No, absolutely not. I didn't feel sorry for this guy. He shouldn't have been where he was. But I think we need to end there on that note. I don't want to talk anymore about it. This was an overall decent show, Nick. What was your opinion?
Yeah, for WCW 97, a lot can be made fun of, but Halloween Havoc is definitely one of their better outings. You obviously have the great cruiserweight match. You had Roddy Piper and Hogan in the main event. I just thought the show lost its focus after the first three matches. So from like match 4, 5, 6 into 7, it just kind of got off the rails. But in true WCW fashion, you get your big controversial ending, so you can turn into Nitro. We'll see you tomorrow night. You have that classic thing. So that's what they wanted. That's what they got. I like Halloween Havoc 97.
I agree. And
we're out of time.
Tony Schiavone classic. So we're gonna give you.
It is, man. We love Tony.
Tony is by far one of my all-time favorites. Him and JR are just the two best commentators. In my opinion, yeah, you've got others like Gordon Soley, who can be up there, but for me, it's always going to be either JR or Schiavone.
Yeah, they're just voices of our youth, right? I mean, you hear Schiavone and JR today, it just takes us back, and I love watching these old WCWs just to hear Tony Schiavone again.
I'm right there with you. And that's going to put a bow on this week's episode, Nick. Next week we're staying in 1997. We're not going to come back in the time machine to 2022 for another week or so when we talk about Crown Jewel, but next week we're not going to WCW, we're going to ECW. We're going to get extreme.
Extreme. We're going extreme next week. November to Remember 97. That's your homework assignment for next week. That's what we'll be breaking down on Cards Subject to Change. Looking forward to it. Giving ECW a little bit more love, and there's some good names on this show and definitely some matches to talk about.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Little preview to December. Like I said, we are going to talk about Starrcade 97 in about a month and a half, but we will not be talking about World War III because we have just an action-packed November. But like I said, Nick, that's going to wrap for today. Thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate you here. You can find us in social media land. Nick is at NickBull55. I am at the Wizard CZ. Find the podcast at CSTC Podcast, and as well as Card Subject to Change Podcast on Facebook. Nick, take us out, my friend.
Hey, I'm glad you guys have been here. We had a great time tonight talking about Halloween Havoc. November to Remember next week, 1997. I think I'm going to stay here. You can leave, but I'm going to stay back in 97.
I'm right there with
you. So long.
Thank you again.
We'll see you next week.
We will. Thank you for tuning in one more time.